Diablo 4 is at a critical point in its development. There is no secret that since the launch of the game in June, Diablo 4 has had a roller coaster of a reception. In fact, I think it looks something like this. The game originally came out to reception that was fairly high until it dawned upon everyone, myself included, that there is core fundamental parts of the game that are not fully realized. For instance, itemization would be one of these. We also had a lack of an in-game loop that was very exciting. So the reception started to go downhill until it hit a point right here where they decided to, in pre-season 1, nerf everyone's power that was very poorly received. This made players feel not only like there's a lack of things to do, but when they logged into their completed characters, they felt even worse than they did the day before. This plummeted the reception until season 1 was launched, and people originally had something to do. There was an apology going with it saying that nerfs, don't worry, we're not going to do these major nerfs again. They apologized for it. People seem to accept that apology, and then people once again realized that season 1 is just malignant tunnels, a few legendary powers, and the reception started going downhill again. Now, we did have Diablo 4, in my opinion's biggest W so far has been Season 2. That is what this is right here, where they had a good season. Not only did they add into Season 2 things to do, so we had like the Blood Tide, which was a good leveling experience, actually brought players together in a Blood Tide, had decent loot associated with the Blood Tide, but you also had powers that came, like a seasonal mechanic, which the vampire powers were very well received. You got sort of that power fantasy back that we had lost with the pre-season nerfs here. So people started to feel strong again. And on top of it, they added new bosses into the game. You had Uber Durio, which was fun to farm because now Ubers are an option. But then people realized, wait a minute, Uber Durio actually isn't fun to farm. The in-game loop here is just farming materials and things like Hell Tides, which was another poor reception in terms of, okay, you get to the in-game, and now the in-game loop is farming materials to be gate-kept by those materials in order to do the boss. So we had an initial spike of, this is fun, and then the in-game loop started to get boring again as people got pigeonholed into just farming. And then we had the release of Season 3, which was probably the most poor reception of any update we had seen in Diablo 4 to this point, and that was by the same team that had made Season 1. They actually have teams that leapfrog each other, so Season 1 makes 1, 3, 5, etc. And the team that made Season 2 is making 4, 6, 8, etc. So Season 3 had some poor reception, and they realized that they needed to change things based upon the feedback. They added some changes to the patch in terms of rewards and the mechanics of the vaults, and they changed the pet up a little bit. This seemed to be better, well received, and then Gauntlet at least gave you something to do and sort of flatlined it. Now you're going to look at this and think, okay, what is this giant spike up in terms of reception and goodwill by the players? Well, this is the potential. We are currently right here, ladies and gentlemen, in the timeline. This is where we are right now. And that is because they have announced that the most requested change in all of Diablo 4 is about to be revealed. If you look here, it says, tune into our next campfire chat, the public test realm revealed. This is March 20th at 11 a.m. Pacific. All of the major dudes from the campfire chats are going to be there in order to detail the massive itemization changes coming to Season 4. They will discuss affixes, item stats, the Codex of Power, and the new in-game systems that will change the way you slay and loot across both the seasonal and eternal realms. Itemization and in-game have easily been the two most, I would say, controversial, but really everyone agrees. It's the most discussed point in the game at the moment. There's the meme of damage on Tuesdays because the affixes don't feel good to acquire. It's an ARPG in which the loot that you get never actually makes you excited. And because they were able to salvage this Season 3 after the very harsh feedback came in quickly all over the place, they have now decided that what they're also going to be doing is putting these changes onto a public test round. They're going to discuss how to access our first public test round in Diablo 4 available to PC Battle.net users. This PTR allows you to get your first taste of the changes coming to Season 4. We'll listen closely to your feedback to make adjustments before the season arrives for all. They're basically doing this to avoid another Season 3 fiasco of horrible negativity coming out from the beginning because it was a pretty negative launch. In order to make the game better, they're just going to have us look at it, see if there's feedback that needs to be sent, etc., before the season even launches. Now, while the PTR is cool, I do believe that it took them quite a long time. I mean, the game's been out since June, and very quickly after that, people started to send the feedback about itemizations. It took them that long in order to get the itemization changes ready to present. So even with feedback sent, unless it's minor tweaks, I doubt we're seeing an entire overhaul of this. So at this point, what we see is probably pretty close to what we're going to get with some minor tweaks. Much how like when we saw Season 3, they were able to make it feel more enjoyable just by upping the loot, changing the pearl quantity, etc. We didn't actually change the entire fundamentals of the vaults. They just made them feel more enjoyable. I'm assuming that the feedback sent about the itemization changes will follow some similar regard. Now, you might say, okay, DM, but remember here, after the launch of Diablo 4, you said that there were two major issues. There was core fundamentals about itemization that was lacking, but there was a core in-game gameplay loop that was lacking, and the Uber Durio, while being fun, eventually got boring. So the best case scenario is not only do we see itemization changes, but we see some in-game addition or changes as well. Now, for me personally, no matter how many D4 bad videos you may see that we all laugh at, I do actually believe there is a significant amount of people that want Diablo 4 to be good. I myself am that way, and I've said this many times that I hope the game is good because I have a YouTube channel that covers it. I also live stream the game as well. I'm not going to play it when I don't like it, but I would hopefully like it in the future. So I myself have hopium, copium, whatever you want to call it, for the itemization changes that will be quite good. And I have a feeling that a large amount of people that watch this feel the same way. I don't think people are actually out there rooting for Diablo 4 to go to the ground so they can be like, yeah, it's now officially only has 52 players left or what have you. I think the game legitimately has people who want to log in and play it to feel like they currently cannot in its state because they just do not enjoy it. So because those people exist, I think Diablo 4 has one last chance if they show some really good changes to the feedback that have been sent basically since the launch of the game. They have a chance to bring some of those players back in at a minimum to try it, or at least to get into PTR and see what they think. And if those players give it 20, 30 minutes to try it, they might actually end up enjoying it if they execute it well. And if they enjoy it, they might stick around to see what Season 4 has to offer outside of just itemization changes. And if that goes well, those people might be interested in buying their expansion pack. And the only reason I say that is because the stance I have had on the expansion for Diablo 4 is one and the same. I'm not willing to give more money to a product that I feel the core fundamental product is flawed. I'm not going to buy a turbo kit for a car that has an engine that already has problems with it. So they need to fix the core fundamentals of the game first. This has always been my opinion. And if they do so, they might bring enough goodwill back from the players to look into their expansion. So not only is it good for the players and in their best interest for them to actually have itemization and in-game changes to be good coming into this PTR, but it's also in Blizzard's best interest to fix the core fundamentals of the original game if they expect the consumer base to be willing to hand them even more money on a product that has problems. So honestly, I believe this campfire chat right here is the most important bit of Diablo information that we will be receiving since the launch of the game. I think this is more important than the BlizzCon announcements where they talked about the Gauntlet leaderboard. I think it's more important than the little art they're doing for the leaderboards, any of the other type of stuff. This is easily the biggest change or announcement since the launch of the game because it's not only going to show what's coming to the game, but it's going to show if players can have hope in the game's development. If the itemization releases are very poor, people are just going to lose faith entirely and no longer even care about the game. But if people log in and look at it and think, oh wow, I'm actually surprised at what they were able to accomplish, maybe they're going to be able to salvage this game after all, then that would be quite important. But in the worst case scenario, where these itemization changes are not good and people spend the time one more time to log in and feel like they got disappointed again, people are going to still feel bad about the purchase they spent. They're not going to want to buy the expansions or anything like that. They're not going to want to log in for Season 4. And we're going to have all of that information before Season 4 even arrives because of the public test round. So This campfire chat here and the public test realm release, whenever we actually get that playable, is the biggest announcement, whatever, in Diablo 4 in terms of its lifespan since the launch of the game, at least in my opinion. But I will be flying to LA here tomorrow in the morning, actually, to get some gameplay on Path of Exile 2. And Path of Exile 2 beta starts on June 7th. So there's some competition in the field as well, and I will have information available for you on that, so you can see that when I come back here as well on Monday. Feel free to subscribe to the video if you want to see notification of when that Path of Exile 2 gameplay footage and all that interview and everything that I record is available. Thanks for liking the video and leaving a comment on this situation, and I will see you on the next one.